And then we've come to the last of our speakers for tonight. Originally scoped by Britta at Soup Ottawa. She felt that it was the perfect speaker for an event like this. Andrew Conte.
All right, ready. Oh, it's going. Okay. So when I told my roommate Lisa that I was doing a PechaKucha talk tonight. Lisa happens to be Japanese, and she said, "Andy, it's pronounced PechaKucha. PechaKucha, 3 syllables, not 4." And I said, "Lisa, I understand. I get it. I'm Italian, and there's a hell of a lot of people that walk around saying espresso." My fascination with the music of language comes from my travel and my work experience as an aid worker, working overseas in conflict zones, like in this photo from Afghanistan. In working in a lot of isolated corners of the world, I've learned that the most valuable approach I can take to figure out why things are the way they are in a place that's foreign to me is to become a part of the culture that I'm living in. Learning about the connectedness of history, the traditions, religions, culture can often tell the story of why things are the way they are in our lives. For me, one of the first experiences in storytelling and culture that I ever composed was sitting down with my grandparents to find out my own history. It was a family archive project I did by accident because my original intention was to record a conversation with my nonno and nonna to talk about their Italian war songs that they sang in their choir. But that launched me into the world and the power of art, expression, stories, ancestry, and culture, and the forces that shape their connectedness. An Indian poet by the name of Varanasi Ramabrahmam writes that culture is like a flowing river that changes with time. It's a flowing river that may become arid and dry depending on our choice and effort to cultivate culture or to neglect it. But for me, this begs the question, why are so many parts of our culture here in Canada and the West neglected in so far that they promote oppression, discrimination, and self-hatred? If what we call mainstream is a stream running dry, why are we still swimming in it, and how can we change this? This brings me to my current film project, which coincidentally starts again in family. I remember, this is my earliest memory. It's me and my dad. His name is Luciano, and in this photo, we just got back from a carnival where he bought me this balloon. I think of this memory more often lately because my dad died a couple years ago after living with a neurodegenerative disorder for several years. I remember when he died that night, even though I woke up in the morning in the house I grew up in, all of a sudden I found myself in a place that was very foreign to me. I'd lost a parent, someone that my culture had taught me to think that would live forever. And what made it twice as heavy was that we later found out that he didn't die from his illness. My father had taken his own life without telling anyone to make it seem like he had died unexpectedly. But we found out the truth, suicide, overdose. And when we found out the truth, I couldn't believe I was being forced to lie to people, even at the funeral, because the intuition of unwritten rules of our culture told me and my brothers and my mom that when someone commits suicide, you don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Can I get a what the fuck? 1, 2, 3. What the fuck? So don't worry, you can swear I asked permission. I was recently asked, "Andy, isn't the death of your dad something that's difficult to go back to?" And I told him, "Man, go back. Where the hell do you think I get this hair from? Grief is something you live with every day, and if I don't carry the story of my dad, then who else is? It's not a story of personal struggle meant to be told. Is not a story of personal struggle meant to be told and shared so that light can get through the cracks so that we can cultivate something better together." If you don't believe me, ask Sarah Polley, who made an intensely personable film that won Canadian Film of the Year last year called Stories We Tell, a documentary about love and infidelity that happened in her family, and taught me that it's not just okay to tell your story, there is no other better way. But an even deeper reason is that I've always wondered if there was an option that my dad's medical team would have offered him from the beginning, an option of help if he wanted to die when he came to that fork in the road, I wonder how it may have framed the end of his story differently, in a more positive, celebratory, and enriching way instead of shame. And we're at a crossroads right now in Canada from the time of Sue Rodriguez in '93 to now. And the second part of this project is to document and inform how court battles that have deemed current laws against assisted suicide to be unconstitutional, how those battles are being fought and will be brought for the second time to the Supreme Court of Canada sometime next year. And this time, I'm betting the law will change. It's happening in Quebec right now. But do I think a law that promotes the freedom of choice over ending your life is the best thing that will help us to overcome death phobia? Over saying that, man, once I can't tolerate myself anymore, that's it, do me in? I'm not so sure. Isn't there a risk that putting a person's choice at the center of their own mortality, that this will perpetuate more of the same death-phobic culture if it reinforces that a dying person be in charge of their death instead of death being in charge? I've learned to ask these questions from an inspiring teacher named Stephen Jenkinson, he was a team lead for Canada's largest palliative care program for several years in the hospitals of Toronto. He's watched thousands of people die and had a film made on his life by the National Film Board called Grief Walker, and I hope you watch it online for free. After spending a weekend in a teepee at his farm in the Ottawa Valley, listening to Stephen teach reminded me that you can be righteously old when you are no longer driven by what you want, because part of the human experience of becoming old is being incompetent and losing control and your desires. So what are the consequences if a law that shapes a culture that creates something that is exactly the opposite? Just like conversations with others at death cafes, which have recently come to Ottawa, where people are talking about the culture of death and how we care grief, I'm seeking a collage of interviews to be in the film from people like yourselves about experiences of death and how they've informed your life, or what death in the end of your tale means to you. I wanted to send thanks to some great organizations in town that have supported me thus far. Saw Video, Saw Gallery, Awesome Ottawa. Love them. Go see their work at Nuit Blanche this weekend. And finally, as the finale, I wanted to make and cultivate some culture with you before we end the evening. There is an Italian opera by Puccini that has one of the most famous arias ever written. And it goes, Nessun dorma, nessun dorma. This means no one will sleep, no one will sleep. And it's about the story of the power of love at first sight. And more than anything, I've hoped that I've inspired you tonight that in experiencing despair, there is opportunity to make culture or make meaning out of it so that it makes you fall in love with being alive. Thank you.